Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go, get up, return, each of you to your mother's house." This expression, the mother's house, is quite rare in the Bible. Normally also in our language we think about the father's house. Why does Naomi say that here? It only appears once with Rebecca and then another 2 times in the Song of Solomon. It's a unique expression, something that has to be heeded to. In sending her back to her mother's or to their mother's house, Naomi sets the girls free and hopes for them that they will find an opportunity to marry again. By the way, here also, if there would have been children, it would have been much more difficult. Or if there would have been a proof that they were 10 years married and did not have children, it would have been much more difficult. So Naomi adds, "May the Lord turn towards you. May He be merciful to you as you have been with the dead and with me." Why did they have to show grace, mercy to dead people? Why didn't Naomi say, "You were merciful, you were wonderful with my husband and with my sons and with whatever, and I hope that the Lord will be wonderful with you"? Again, I would like you to talk about these things, to ponder them, to look into them, to see them in a biblical context. There are several layers to understand this book. And I just want to hint you to one possibility. The prophet Ezekiel declares that a Israel that is separated from the land of Israel is like dead bones, dead and in the grave. And if the Lord brings them back into their country, He calls them out of their graves and makes the bones alive again, makes them bodies and alive again. So Naomi's daughters-in-law showed mercy to the dead who were uprooted, who had fled from the land and were thus dead. "May the Lord grant you," she continues, "rest, each in her husband's house." The blessing of Naomi here is one of a total of 7 passages in the book of Ruth where God's blessing is asked over one or more people. And it would be a whole story by itself to go through these blessings, to see them one to each other, to see the context, and to ask them also, how do we encounter each other today? And then Naomi kissed them, and all of them lifted up their voices and wept. And then she said to her, Orpa and Ruth said to her, "We'd rather return with you to your people." Naomi, however, said, "Turn back, my daughters." You as Bible readers, you underlined all the turns, the turnarounds in this chapter. So you see how often it appears here. Turn back, my daughters. Why do you want to go with me? Do I have children left in my womb who could become or might become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go, for I am too old to become the wife of a man. And if I'd say I have hope, even if I would be a man's wife tonight, even if I'd bear children, would you really want to wait until they're grown up? Would you shut yourselves out and refrain from marrying? No, my daughters. Just have here in mind and go through the text. It's one of the interesting issues how old who was in this book scroll of Ruth. And what is said here about waiting, about getting pregnant again, what is said about whom and how it would be logical. It's very interesting that the thought even came up for Naomi in this situation. But she says, no, my daughters, for it is exceedingly... the question is now how you translate it. Kimarli meod mikem. For it is bitter to me very much from you. That would be, if I go word by word through it, and if I would translate it in a kind of weird English, as a translator I have to decide, do I say for my fate is much more bitter than yours, make it a comparison? Or do I say, and maybe there was a hint in the way Naomi said it to her daughters-in-law, look, I experienced a lot of bitterness from you. Both is possible here, theoretically. But then she at once says, for the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. So she turns away, she doesn't give any shame or guilt on the daughters, but she says it's the Lord who has been dealing here. It is one of the basic messages of the scroll of Ruth. The one true living God has everything in his hand. Nothing is left to chance. And even though this is one of the very books where it happened by chance or incidentally, this expression appears, it's a very clear message. Everything is in the Lord's hand. But this is no reason for fatalism, and certainly not for laziness. The ancient rabbis said, in view of this whole situation, Ruth has done her part, Naomi did hers, and Boaz did his part. Thereupon the Holy One, blessed be He, said, then, if they all did whatever they were able to contribute, then I will do my part. Isn't it wonderful how we see in this book how human dealings is intertwined with what God is doing, and in the end He gets His way? Then they lifted up their voices and wept even more. And Orpa kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.